Sometimes, justice dies in silence. It doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It just fades, under flashing lights, behind steel bars, in a place where no one's watching, and even fewer care. That's exactly where this story begins, not with a gunshot, not with a crime, but with a broken taillight, and a woman just trying to get home. It was just after 9 p.m. on a warm Thursday night in East Atlanta. Nia Hill had finished a long day at work. Her eyes were tired, her voice hoarse from talking with customers all day at the pharmacy. In the back seat of her dusty silver SUV, her two children, Ava and Malik, were half asleep, their heads resting against their car seats. They were 2 blocks from home. 2 blocks. That's when the red and blue lights lit up behind her. At first, Nia thought maybe it wasn't for her. She even slowed down to let the cruiser pass. But when the siren gave a quick whoop and the lights flickered in her rearview, her heart dropped. She pulled over beneath a flickering street lamp, cut the engine, and whispered to her kids, "Stay calm, okay? Mommy's got this." The first officer approached from the driver's side, Officer Ray Dawson. His voice was clipped, sharp, no warmth. "License and registration. Expired tags." Nia blinked. "Sir, I just paid the renewal last W." He cut her off. "You step out of the vehicle." Nia's hand shook slightly as she reached for her purse on the passenger seat. Her inhaler, her lifeline, slipped out and landed with a soft clink onto the floor. She stepped out slowly, calmly, hands raised. Her children started crying from the back seat. A second patrol car pulled up. From it stepped Officer Tasha Green, tall, poised, cold-eyed. She didn't ask questions. She didn't speak to the kids. She just walked up and began circling the vehicle like it was a crime scene. Let's be clear. Nia Hill had no record. No drugs. No weapons. No warrants. Just a woman on her way home with her babies. And an expired tag. But to these officers, she was a threat. Why? Was it her voice? Her color? Her calm refusal to shrink? Whatever it was, something in the air shifted. The temperature dropped. The moment froze. Officer Dawson grabbed her wrist. "Turn around. You're resisting." "I'm not resisting," Nia pleaded. "I need my inhaler. It's in my..." But he didn't listen. With one swift motion, he shoved her face first onto the hood. Her children screamed. The inhaler, forgotten, rolled out of the open purse and into the gutter. That was the last time Nia Hill would ever see her children from the outside of a jail cell. That was the moment the system stopped seeing her as human. She was handcuffed, roughly, in front of her babies. Her pleas ignored. Her breath already growing shallow. And the only thing that could have saved her, that small gray inhaler, lay cold and lifeless in the dark. A few neighbors stood outside, watching. Some recorded on their phones, but no one intervened. One man muttered under his breath, "She just needed her medicine." But no one spoke up. No one stepped forward. Because fear is a powerful thing. When Nia was placed in the back of the squad car, her face was blank. Not crying, not screaming, just still. Because she knew, deep in her chest, beneath the growing tightness, this was not just a traffic stop. This was a warning. This was a machine. And she was now caught inside it. As the officers drove away, the taillights disappeared into the night. Her children were left behind with a social worker called to the scene, crying in the back of a stranger's car. And that inhaler? It stayed there on the sidewalk. Unclaimed. Unimportant. Unforgivable. The county jail was always cold. Not just cold in temperature, but cold in the way a place can feel like it was built to erase people. Steel doors, bleach-scrubbed floors, and voices that bounce off concrete like they're trying to escape. That's where Nia Hill was taken. No rights read. No medical check. Just processed like a package, like inventory, for a minor infraction that turned into a death sentence. They took her shoelaces, took her belt, took her name, and didn't even ask about her health. Didn't care that she was gasping more than she was speaking. Didn't see the sweat on her forehead. Didn't see the slow panic rising behind her eyes. Because to them, she was just another number in the system. Holding cell D. That's where they left her. There were 5 other women in that cell. Each sitting alone, backs against the walls, eyes low, all of them waiting for a morning that might or might not come. But Nia? She wasn't waiting. She was fighting. Fighting for air. At first, it was shallow breaths. Then coughing. Then the quiet, hoarse whisper. "Help." She found the button on the wall, the only lifeline in the cell. A small plastic square. Red light. Cold metal. She pressed it. It lit up. And then, nothing. She pressed it again, and again, and again, every few seconds, every breath more painful than the last. The light blinked each time, but no one came. Outside her cell, guards leaned back in plastic chairs. One sipped coffee. Another scrolled on his phone. A third laughed at something on a screen. That little red light blinked behind them, like a warning they had learned to ignore. And what was she asking for? Not freedom, not pity, not even justice. Just a puff, one inhalation, one chance to breathe. An intake nurse passed by, clipboard in hand, white coat pristine. Her eyes grazed over the cell, then moved on. Maybe she saw Nia hunched in the corner, gripping her chest. Maybe she didn't. But she didn't stop. Another inmate saw. A woman named Crystal. She saw Nia's face go pale. Saw her hands claw at the air. Saw her lips tremble as she whispered, "Please." Crystal stood, waved her arms, called out, "She can't breathe. Somebody." But a guard barked back, "Sit down. Be quiet." And that was that. Minutes passed like hours. The red light kept blinking. The air in the cell grew heavier. The fluorescent lights buzzed like gnats. And Nia? She slid to the floor, back pressed against cold concrete. Eyes wide, chest rising and falling in uneven bursts. Each breath smaller. Each second longer. She wasn't just dying. She was being ignored to death. Other women in the cell started to notice. But no one had power. Not behind those walls. Not in a system built to silence them. They watched helpless as another woman faded like smoke in a locked room. Just after 3:00 a.m. Nia stopped pressing the button. Not because she stopped trying, but because she couldn't move. Her arms fell to her sides. Her fingers twitched once. Then, stillness. Her head tilted back against the wall. Eyes closed. Gone. No alarm sounded. No nurse ran in. The guards didn't notice, because no one was looking. And even if they had looked, would they have cared? It wasn't until nearly 5 a.m. that someone finally checked the cell. A guard, bored during rounds, peeked in. At first, he thought she was sleeping, but something was off. Too still, too quiet. He unlocked the door, stepped inside, called her name once. No response. He reached down and touched her shoulder. It was cold. The emergency call went out. Medics rushed in, but it was far too late. One of them checked her pulse, shook his head, and zipped up the body bag. Narrator voice, disgusted. Her body was wheeled out like trash. No mention of the button. No record of the other inmates. No note about the woman who tried to help. Her death was logged as asthma complications. 3 words. 3 lies. Nia Hill didn't die from asthma. She died from being ignored. She died from being erased. She died from being a black woman in a cage full of silence. With a red blinking light as her only witness. When the sun rose over East Atlanta that morning, the city moved on like it always does. Coffee brewed. Kids got dressed for school. Buses rumbled down cracked streets. But inside one small brick home on Pendleton Avenue, time stopped. Marcus Hill was in the kitchen, sipping weak coffee from a chipped mug, trying to stay calm. Trying to believe his wife was okay. That maybe she'd call soon. Annoyed, maybe tired, but safe. He told their daughter Ava, "Mommy'll be back soon, baby." Just a misunderstanding. He even started planning how to help her get the car from impound. Because that's what husbands do. They prepare for the fix. But what Marcus didn't know was that the fix was never coming. The knock on the door was firm. Not friendly. Not curious. Heavy. Marcus opened it to see 2 officers standing side by side. Hats in their hands. Eyes downcast. Their cruisers still running behind them, engine humming like a warning. One of them cleared his throat and said the words that changed lives. There was a medical emergency at the jail. Narrator pause. No emotion. No apology. Just procedure. Marcus didn't move. Didn't speak. He gripped the doorknob until his knuckles turned white. Behind him, Ava stood in her pajamas, clutching her doll, eyes wide. "Is Mommy okay?" she asked. But Marcus couldn't answer, because the words they handed him were too heavy to speak. The coffee went cold on the kitchen counter, the toast untouched. And outside, the world just kept spinning. Neighbors watered their lawns. Dogs barked in the distance. The mail was delivered on time. But inside that house, something had broken. Something that would never be whole again. Meanwhile, down at the county medical examiner's office, Nia Hill's body was wheeled into a cold, windowless room, placed on a metal table beneath buzzing fluorescent lights. And that's where Dr. Camille Bishop came in, clipboard in hand. Eyes tired, so exhausted. Dr. Bishop had seen this before. Too many times. Cases that came with quiet phone calls. Files stamped with "Do not escalate." Subtle reminders to keep things simple. She opened the manila folder. Arrest record. Jail logs. A short line. Medical emergency. Asthma-related. No mention of the button. No note about the inhaler. No video from the arrest. Nothing about the woman begging for help on the cell floor. And when she looked for the body cam footage, corrupted. Convenient. Still, Dr. Bishop went through the motions. Checked the vitals. Made her notes. No bruises. No trauma. No signs of abuse. At least, not the kind that leaves a mark. And then she signed the report. Cause of death, asthma complications. Manner of death, natural. One more signature on a stack of quiet tragedies. Later that day, in a private meeting room overlooking the courthouse, District Attorney Julian Price sat across from her. The file on the table between them. They both knew what was missing from it. They both understood what this was. The message was clear. Close it. Quietly. No protests. No news stories. No questions. Because a dead mother in a jail cell? That's a storm they didn't want to weather. So they did what they always do. They filed it away. No foul play. No press release. No justice. Just silence. Back at home, Marcus tried to explain the unexplainable to his kids. Tried to hold it together while the funeral home called. While reporters knocked. While the grief settled in like smoke. Heavy, bitter, choking. But Marcus Hill wasn't built to collapse. He wasn't raised to cry in front of cameras. He wasn't the kind to hold up signs or beg for justice on the steps of City Hall. He had been trained by the streets. Disciplined by hard years and harder choices. And when the system that stole his wife tried to feed him silence, he didn't scream. He listened. And waited. Because he knew something they didn't. Truth leaves shadows. And shadows always move. It was 2 weeks after Nia's death that it arrived. An envelope. No return address. Just his name, scrawled in blue ink across the front. It was waiting for him on the floor of his barbershop. Inside, a printout of the jail logs. A copy of Nia's intake records. A flash drive, taped to cardboard. And one handwritten note. She pressed the button 19 times. Marcus went into the back room, locked the door, and slid the flash drive into an old laptop. The screen flickered. And then, sound. Nia's voice. Soft. Strained. Barely a whisper. I can't breathe. Please. Please, someone, help? And then silence. Then again, please, please. He listened to every second. All 7 minutes. Eyes locked on the wall. No blinking. No tears. Just steel. When the clip ended, Marcus picked up his phone and sent one message. No words. Just a number. A contact he hadn't used in years. A man who once ran cameras, clubs, and favors for favors. The kind of man who could make surveillance go blind for a few minutes. The message was received. The streets shifted. And just like that, Marcus Hill disappeared into the city. Not lost. Not broken. But on the move. Grief changes people. For some, it softens the edges. For others, it carves them into something sharper. Something cold. Something that remembers every detail. Marcus Hill remembered everything. He remembered the way the officer's hand pushed Nia's face onto the hood. The way her voice cracked when she asked for her inhaler. The way their kids cried from the back seat, confused and terrified. He remembered the silence that followed the knock on the door. But what he remembered most was the blinking red light, the one no one answered. Marcus didn't rage, didn't post, didn't scream into a microphone. Instead, he studied. He watched. He waited. He built something no one saw coming. From the moment that flash drive reached his hands, the gears started turning. He didn't need a blueprint. He just needed time. And now he had nothing but narrator tone, suspenseful, like a hunter tracking prey. It started with paper. He spread the jail logs across the backroom table of his barbershop. Highlighted names. Noted timestamps. Cross-referenced the call button records with officer rotations. 19 presses. Over 20 minutes. 3 guards on duty. And only one name appeared on every log. Correctional Officer Jamal Ford. Then came the notes, handwritten by someone inside. They told a different story. Nia begged for her inhaler. Other inmates tried to call for help. Nurses walked by and ignored her. Ford told them to let her calm down. It wasn't neglect. It was cruelty wrapped in indifference. Marcus mapped it all out. On one wall, names. On the other, outcomes. One by one, he identified them. Officer Ford, Officer Tasha Green, Captain Vernon Slate, Dr. Camille Bishop, DA Julian Price, Officer Ray Dawson. Each of them touched Nia's story. Each of them left her to die. And not a single one lost a night's sleep. Until now. Marcus began moving through the city like a shadow. He asked no questions, left no trail, never spoke about what he was doing. But the streets started to notice. Cameras glitched. Security systems went blind for short bursts. People who once bragged about their power suddenly started watching their backs. Marcus wasn't just grieving. He was gathering. He called in quiet favors. People who owed him. People who once said, "If you ever need me, I got you." Now he needed them. And they didn't ask why. One friend gave him access to an old security scrambler, a relic from an abandoned warehouse job. Crude, but effective. Another helped him wipe digital footprints. A third? She gave him a burner phone with a one-way connection for coordination that left no trail. Marcus never spoke to them about Nia. He didn't have to. They'd seen the footage. They'd heard the recording. And for them, that was enough. At night, when the shop was closed, Marcus sat in the dark with a single photo on the counter. Nia's smile. A free frame of peace, before the storm. He touched the edge of the photo, take one breath, and then pack up the papers for the night. It wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. It was about balance. About silence paid back in full. Every move he made was careful. He knew their routines. Ford always stopped at the liquor store on Thursdays after his shift. Green parked on the top level of the hotel garage, always alone. Slate had a lake house, quiet, private, easy to reach without cameras. And the DA? He liked rooftops. Places with no microphones, just secrets and skyline. Marcus memorized them all. And then he waited. He waited for the right nights. The blind spots. The moments where the system turned its back, just like it did to Nia. And when those moments came, he moved. Not loud. Not messy. Not angry. Just done. No shell casings. No notes. No warning. Just disappearances. Just cold bodies and warm rumors. The city would call it coincidence at first, then suspicion, then fear. But they'd never call it justice. Because justice would have saved Nia. This was something else entirely. Marcus Hill didn't set out to be a ghost. But when the system erased his wife, he learned how to become invisible. And now, he was everywhere they never looked. It happened quietly. No headlines. No warning. Just gone. The first name on Marcus Hill's wall disappeared into the dark, and no one saw it coming. Correctional Officer Jamal Ford. The man who watched Nia struggle. Who heard her cries and chose to laugh instead. Who told the women in the cell to let her calm down. He had no idea that silence had a consequence. It was a Thursday night, the end of his shift. Ford stopped by the same liquor store he always did. Grabbed his drink. A pack of gum. Routine. He didn't know someone was watching from across the street. Didn't notice the glint of eyes behind a windshield. Didn't feel the stillness in the air shift. Ford stepped into the alley beside the store, keys in one hand, brown paper bag in the other. His car waited under a flickering streetlight. The parking lot was empty. He got in, started the engine. The old sedan rattled to life. And in that moment, a shadow stepped forward from the dark. Marcus had timed everything. He'd mapped out the alley's camera blind spots. Used a scrambler, just for 5 minutes. Enough to blind the nearby surveillance. He'd worn gloves, left his phone at home, entered quiet, moved quieter. One shot. Not loud, not dramatic. Just final. A soft pop, silenced by the narrow walls. The kind of sound that doesn't travel far. Ford slumped forward against the wheel. The gum and drink still untouched on the seat beside him. His head tilted. Blood pooled quietly beneath his collar. No screams. No chaos. The car stayed running. Headlights casting across the empty alley. The body sat in stillness. The figure stepped back into the dark. No panic, no rush, and vanished like mist between trash bins. No shell casing. No prints. Nothing left behind. It wasn't until morning that a man walking to work noticed the car idling with the lights still on. He peeked in, and what he saw made his stomach twist. The police arrived fast. But they found nothing. No fingerprints. No security footage. No motive. Just a man dead in a running car. To the world, it was a mystery. To Marcus, it was a message. The system ignored Nia's cries. Now the silence would echo back, one by one. Back at police headquarters, the mood shifted. They didn't say it aloud, not yet. But those who knew what really happened to Nia, they felt it in their bones. That death wasn't random. It was deliberate. And it was just the beginning. Detectives gathered in hushed corners, pulling files. Captain Vernon Slate reviewed the incident report personally. Officer Tasha Green, the one who stood silent as Nia begged for air, started locking her door at night. DA Julian Price sat a little longer in his office that day, staring out the window like something might be watching back. And Officer Ray Dawson? He took his patrol routes a little slower. Because they knew. Maybe not how. Maybe not when. But they knew who. They just couldn't prove it. Because Marcus Hill wasn't leaving fingerprints. He wasn't making demands. He wasn't sending letters to news stations. He was just erasing. Quietly. Cleanly. Officer Ford was the first. Not because he was the worst. But because he was the beginning. He was the one who could have pushed the button. Could have checked on her. Could have picked up the inhaler. But he didn't. And now? He would never hear another plea again. There's something haunting about vengeance and silence. No warnings. No mercy. No noise. Only a cold seat. A still body. And a truth no one can outrun. Justice had begun. And Marcus Hill was just getting started. After Officer Jamal Ford's body was found slumped over the wheel, the silence started to ripple. At first, it was whispered. Then murmured. Then spoken behind closed doors. Someone was out there. Someone who knew what happened the night Nia Hill died. And they weren't just angry. They were surgical. But still, no one acted. Not Officer Tasha Green. She saw the news of Ford's death over coffee the next morning, a quiet headline scrolling across the bottom of her TV. She didn't flinch. Didn't say a word. Just turned the volume up and poured more cream into her cup. That night, she went to dinner with friends at a hotel downtown. Laughed louder than usual. Tried to shake the feeling, the itch that something was wrong. After dessert, she drove into the hotel's parking garage. Level 3. Far corner. Same spot she always parked in. She sat in the car a while, scrolling on her phone. The engine off. The windows fogged slightly from the cool air. She locked the doors, leaned back against the seat, and closed her eyes for just a moment. She never woke up again. No one saw who came up the stairwell. The security cameras glitched for 6 full minutes. When they rebooted, all they showed was Green's car quiet, unmoving, windows fogged, and lights off. When a hotel staffer came by the next morning, he found her body inside. Still buckled in. Still sitting upright. But her throat had been crushed. No signs of struggle. No broken nails. No defensive wounds. It was as if the air had been stolen from her in one clean moment, the same way Nia's had been. Officer Green didn't press a button. She didn't cry out. Because she couldn't. Just like Nia. Back at headquarters, Captain Vernon Slate stood in the briefing room, looking over the photos. 2 officers dead. No suspects. No evidence. No leads. Just whispers. And fear. And everyone at that table? They were on the same report the night Nia Hill died. Slate left town the next day. Told his team he needed a break. Said he was going up to his lake house near northern Georgia. He never came back. For 2 days, no one heard from him. On the 3rd day, a sheriff's team found his SUV parked neatly near a dock, keys in the cup holder, fishing rods still propped by the door. The lake was calm. Still. The kind of place where people come to breathe. But under that water, Slate wasn't breathing anymore. Divers found him beneath the surface, weighted down with cinder blocks. His face serene. His lips pale. No wounds. No blood. No fight. Just silence. It was ironic. Slate spent his career ordering other people to clean up messes. Now, he was the mess being pulled from the mud. The department reeled. 3 gone. 3 who had been there that night. And they still hadn't said her name. But someone else did. The city woke up one morning to something different. Not a press release. Not a leaked document. Not another crime scene. But a sound. A recording. Just a few minutes long. But enough to freeze the blood in your veins. It was Nia's voice, the audio from the jail cell. I can't breathe, please. Someone help me. The red call button blinked in the background. Her breath got shorter. Her words fainter. And then, silence. Someone had leaked the audio online. Within hours, it had gone viral. The streets of Atlanta filled with people. Not just protesters, mourners. Fathers. Mothers. Daughters. They didn't need to know her personally. They knew her pain. They chanted her name. Held signs that read, she deserved to breathe. Candles lit the sidewalk outside the county jail. Children placed flowers beneath a wall that by morning had transformed. A mural of Nia, her face painted in warm tones, surrounded by waves, her eyes looking out over the city that failed her. Above her image, someone had painted in bold letters, "Silence killed her. Truth remembers her." Reporters scrambled to find who leaked the audio. The department blamed hackers. The DA's office refused to comment. But behind every podium was fear. Because the people demanding answers were growing. And those responsible? They were falling. Dr. Camille Bishop was next to disappear. The medical examiner who signed Nia's death certificate. The woman who said nothing, even when she knew. She didn't die. But one day, she was simply gone. Didn't show up to work. Didn't answer her phone. Vanished. 2 days later, she came back. Walked into her office. Packed a single box. Left a resignation letter. Then, gone again. But that same night, a voicemail leaked. A friend of hers had recorded it. Her voice shaky, but honest. "I didn't want to sign it," she said. "They made me. The DA, he pressured me. I'm sorry. I didn't know it would feel like this. I can't live with it anymore." That voicemail played on every news station. Over images of the protest. Over clips of the mural. Over shots of police officers with stone faces and tight jaws. The city couldn't pretend anymore. This wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was truth. Ugly. Painful. Undeniable. DA Julian Price knew it was only a matter of time. So he did what cowards do. He tried to cut a deal. He met Officer Ray Dawson on a rooftop downtown. They spoke in low voices. Passed envelopes. Exchanged burner phones. Trying to get ahead of whatever storm was coming. But they weren't alone. Marcus was there. Watching. Waiting. 2 shadows. 2 shots. 2 bodies. Gone before sunrise. They weren't found until weeks later. Miles apart. Their names tucked into news briefs, with no cause of death released. But those who knew? They didn't need autopsy reports. They understood the silence. By now, there were murals in 5 neighborhoods. The chant had spread beyond Georgia. Nia Hill had become a symbol. But to Marcus? She was never a symbol. She was his wife. And now, his promise was nearly complete. District Attorney Julian Price had always believed in power from above. He liked high places. The courtroom bench. The second-story office. And now, a rooftop on the east side of the city. Hidden from cameras. Hidden from microphones. A place where secrets could be spoken without consequence. But tonight, the air was different. Colder. Still. A wind moving through the city like a breath held too long. He stood near the edge, hands in his coat pockets, staring at the skyline. His breath visible in the night air. Waiting. The rooftop door creaked open. Officer Ray Dawson stepped through, boots echoing on the concrete. His face was drawn. Pale. His movements stiff, like he hadn't slept in days. They didn't shake hands. Just stood, shoulder to shoulder, looking out over the city like men watching their kingdom crumble. Price pulled an envelope from his coat. It was thick. Inside, cash. On top, a disposable phone, taped shut. "No more texts. No more calls," he muttered. "Use this once, then destroy it." Dawson nodded, his jaw tight. No words. Just dread. Because they knew. Officer Ford. Officer Green. Captain Slate. Dr. Bishop. They were all connected to that night. And now? They were all gone. But what neither of them knew was that they weren't alone. In a shadowed corner of the rooftop, beyond the reach of the buzzing lights, Marcus Hill waited. Still, breathing slow, invisible in a world that never saw him to begin with. He'd followed them, studied them. He knew how fear moved, how it made people sloppy, how it made them meet in places just like this, high, dark, exposed. They thought they were ahead of it. They thought they could outplay what they didn't understand. But Marcus wasn't playing anymore. He stepped forward from the shadows. 2 paces. A breath. Then, 2 shots. Soft. Sharp. Silent steel in the midnight air. Price dropped first. His hand clutched the envelope, mouth open like he wanted to scream, but didn't. Dawson turned, but the second shot found his chest. His knees buckled. The phone slipped from his hand and skidded beneath a car. Then stillness. Marcus didn't run. He moved with purpose. Stepped around the pool of blood, picked up the disposable phone, smashed it underfoot, then faded back into the shadows from where he came. The rooftop was still, cold wind brushing over 2 silent bodies. No alarms. No witnesses. No trace. The cameras blinked, glitched, then returned, showing nothing but an empty rooftop under a dark sky. The bodies weren't found for weeks, each in different states. No connection made, at least not officially. But behind closed doors, the department knew. And the officers left alive? They didn't speak above a whisper. With Julian Price gone, the last domino had fallen. The storm Mia's death started had swallowed every man and woman who could have saved her, but didn't. There were no trials, no lawsuits, no headlines demanding closure. Only missing faces, sealed files, and a city holding its breath. On that rooftop, Marcus didn't smile. He didn't cry. He just did what needed to be done. Because sometimes justice doesn't wear a badge. Sometimes it wears silence. And on that night, it wore Marcus Hill's footsteps, soft, certain, and unforgiving, walking away into the dark. The city never found him. There were no security alerts, no chase through alleys, no arrests. Marcus Hill didn't vanish in a flash of violence. He disappeared the way grief does, slowly, quietly, until it's just part of the air. Inside a rented storage unit on the edge of the city, police later found the ashes of his blueprint. A burned laptop, melted gloves, stacks of jail records charred and unreadable. No fingerprints, no hair, no DNA. It was like chasing smoke. A ghost, they called him. A ghost with purpose. Back at the precinct, the mood was different now. No one laughed loud in the break room anymore. No one talked about the Hill case. Because no one wanted to admit what they all knew. He was right. They had let Nia die. Pressed her down. Ignored her voice. Watched her die behind a red blinking light. And Marcus? He simply remembered. The protests never stopped. A week after the rooftop killings, the mural of Nia Hill expanded. Her face now covered an entire building wall, vibrant, unblinking. Underneath, a new line appeared. Say her name. Then ask yourself why you didn't before. Reporters still search for answers. They asked, who leaked the audio? Who painted the mural? Who's behind the deaths? But no one answered. Because maybe they didn't want the answer. Because maybe, deep down, they already knew. At a vigil, Nia's children lit candles beneath her mural. Their small hands holding matches. Their faces bathed in soft flickering light. They stood in silence, surrounded by hundreds. Some cried. Some whispered prayers. Some held signs that read, she couldn't breathe. But we still do. And then, the bus pulled away. At a Greyhound station 3 states away, a man in a hooded jacket stepped onto a night route. No suitcase. Just a folded photo in his coat pocket. A woman smiling, eyes full of light. Frozen in time. He sat near the back. Didn't speak. Didn't look back. The engine rumbled. The city faded into the distance. No one remembers what seat he took. No one noticed the scar on his hand, or how he stared out the window for miles. But the system remembered. The silence remembered. And every blinking red light in every jail cell from Georgia to California. Remembered. Because Marcus Hill didn't set out to be a hero. He set out to be a mirror. To show the world what happens when cries for help go unanswered. He didn't need headlines. Or medals. Just silence returned. One breath at a time. He walked away. But the story? It stayed. And it still speaks every time someone whispers. She deserved to breathe.